The internet has declared seed oils public enemy number one. Carnivore influencers say they're slowly killing you. Mainstream nutrition says they're completely fine. As usual, the truth is more nuanced than either camp wants to admit, and more interesting. Today we look at what the evidence actually says about seed oils, which ones are worth avoiding, and which alternatives hold up under scrutiny. Quick note before we start. This video is for informational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Always consult your healthcare provider before making significant changes to your diet, especially if you have a medical condition. Welcome to Ingredient Verdict, where we examine one ingredient at a time, no hype, just the evidence. Seed oils might be the most polarizing topic in nutrition right now. And the debate is worth examining carefully, because both sides are getting something right, and both sides are getting something wrong. What are seed oils exactly? Seed oils are vegetable oils extracted from the seeds of plants rather than the fruit or nut itself. The most common ones you'll find in processed foods and restaurant kitchens are soybean oil, canola oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, cottonseed oil and rapeseed oil. These are sometimes called the hateful eight in certain corners of the internet. A label that's more marketing than science, but not entirely without basis. What unites them is their high content of polyunsaturated fatty acids, specifically omega-6 fatty acids, primarily linoleic acid. And as we covered in our omega-3 video, the balance between omega-6 and omega-3 in the diet matters significantly. Here's something most people don't know about how their cooking oil is produced. Traditional oils like extra virgin olive oil are made simply: press the olives, collect the oil. Seed oils are a different story. Most commercial seed oils go through an industrial extraction process. Seeds are first crushed, then treated with chemical solvents, typically hexane, a petroleum-derived solvent, to extract the maximum amount of oil. The oil is then refined, bleached and deodorized in a process sometimes called RBD, refined, bleached, deodorized. This process removes most of the hexane. Residue levels in finished oils are regulated in the EU at a maximum of 1 mg per kilogram. However, the underlying safety assessment dates back to 1994, based on animal studies from the late 1980s, and EFSA is currently conducting a full re-evaluation with modern methods. We'd call the current status approved but under review rather than a clean bill of health. Beyond the solvent question, the refining process also strips out much of the natural flavor, color and antioxidants that would otherwise be present. The result is a neutral, shelf-stable, cheap oil that works well for industrial food production. Whether that process matters for health is a legitimate question, and one the research hasn't fully resolved. If you watched our omega-3 video, this will sound familiar. Seed oils are extremely high in omega-6 fatty acids, particularly linoleic acid. Soybean oil is around 50% linoleic acid. Sunflower oil can be 65% or higher. Corn oil around 55%. The issue isn't omega-6 itself. It's an essential fatty acid the body needs. The issue is the ratio. As we covered previously, the historical omega-6 to omega-3 ratio in human diets was roughly 4:1. In modern Western diets, heavily dependent on seed oils and processed foods, that ratio has shifted to 15:1 or even 20:1. Seed oils are one of the primary drivers of that shift, not because any single bottle is dangerous, but because they are ubiquitous. They're in almost every processed food, every restaurant fryer, every fast food meal. The cumulative exposure is significant. Whether this omega-6 excess directly causes harm, or whether it's simply a marker of an overall poor diet, is genuinely debated in the research. That's an honest answer, even if it's not a satisfying one. Here's the most underappreciated issue with seed oils, and the one with the strongest evidence base. Polyunsaturated fatty acids are chemically unstable. When exposed to heat, light or air, they oxidize, breaking down into compounds including aldehydes, which research has linked to inflammation and cellular damage in animal studies. Think of it like this: polyunsaturated fats are like a fresh newspaper left in the sun. They degrade quickly, and what they break down into isn't neutral. The problem is that seed oils are most commonly used for exactly the conditions that accelerate oxidation: high heat frying, repeated use in commercial fryers, long shelf life under artificial lighting in supermarkets. Research has found elevated levels of oxidation byproducts in commercially fried foods and in cooking oils that have been heated repeatedly. This is not the same as saying seed oils are toxic, but it is a legitimate reason to be cautious about how and how often they're used, particularly for high-heat cooking. Interestingly, this is one area where the anti-seed oil camp has a point, even if their conclusions are often overstated. Here's where it gets complicated, and where we need to be honest about the limits of the evidence. Large epidemiological studies have generally found that replacing saturated fats with polyunsaturated fats, including from seed oils, is associated with reduced cardiovascular risk. This is the basis of mainstream dietary guidelines recommending seed oils as heart-healthy. However, these studies have significant limitations. They often can't distinguish between different types of polyunsaturated fats, don't account for oxidation levels, and rely on self-reported dietary data. Association is not causation. On the other side, the research claiming seed oils cause inflammation, obesity or chronic disease in humans is largely based on animal studies or mechanistic research, not robust human clinical trials. We'd call the current evidence genuinely uncertain, not a reason to panic, but also not a clean bill of health. If seed oils are a concern, what are the alternatives for different cooking needs? Extra virgin olive oil remains the gold standard for everyday cooking at moderate temperatures. It's high in monounsaturated fats, rich in polyphenols, and has an extensive research base supporting cardiovascular benefits. Look for cold-pressed, ideally with a harvest date on the label. As we'll cover in a future video, olive oil fraud is a real issue. Avocado oil has a high smoke point and a good fatty acid profile, making it well suited for higher heat cooking. Cold-pressed versions retain some of their natural antioxidants. Cold-pressed rapeseed oil deserves a mention here as an underrated option. Unlike refined canola oil, which goes through the RBD process we described earlier, cold-pressed rapeseed oil retains its natural tocopherols, polyphenols and carotenoids. Research shows it has a genuinely interesting nutritional profile. High in oleic acid at around 58 to 62%. And with meaningful amounts of ALA omega-3 at around 9 grams per 100 grams. The catch is that it's more susceptible to oxidation than refined versions, so storage matters. Keep it in a dark bottle, away from heat and light, and use it within a reasonable time after opening. Not suitable for high-heat cooking, but as an everyday oil for moderate temperatures it's a well-researched and accessible alternative, particularly in European markets where it's widely available. Coconut oil is high in saturated fat, which makes it stable under heat but also controversial. The research on coconut oil and cardiovascular health is genuinely mixed. We'd call it a reasonable option for occasional use rather than a daily staple. And then there's one most people have never heard of, perilla oil. Widely used in Korean and Japanese cuisine, perilla oil has one of the best omega-3 profiles of any plant-based oil, with around 60% ALA content. That makes it particularly interesting from a fatty acid balance perspective. Like cold-pressed rapeseed oil, it's highly unstable under heat, making it suitable only as a finishing oil or in cold preparations. It's not easy to find in most Western supermarkets, but worth knowing about as the omega-3 profile is remarkable. For high-heat cooking specifically, beef tallow, ghee and butter are stable options that have been used for centuries. Whether animal fats are better than seed oils overall depends heavily on the rest of the diet and individual health context. So here's our verdict. The seed oil debate is real, but it's been captured by extremes on both sides. The case against seed oils is strongest when it comes to oxidation from high-heat cooking and the cumulative omega-6 burden from processed food consumption. These are legitimate concerns backed by reasonable evidence. The case that seed oils are acutely toxic or the primary driver of chronic disease in humans is not well supported by current evidence. That's an overclaim. Our practical take. For everyday cold use and moderate heat cooking, extra virgin olive oil remains the most evidence-backed choice. Cold-pressed rapeseed oil is a well-researched and often more affordable alternative, particularly in European markets. For high-heat cooking, avocado oil or stable animal fats are reasonable alternatives. For processed and restaurant food, seed oils are largely unavoidable, and occasional exposure is unlikely to be significant. The concern is chronic, high-volume consumption. Minimizing ultra-processed foods, which are the primary vehicle for seed oil consumption, addresses the root cause more effectively than worrying about which oil to cook with at home. And perilla oil. If you can find it, it's worth trying as a finishing oil. One of the more interesting underdogs in the world of fats. That's our verdict on seed oils. Bottom line. The processing matters, the heat matters, and the dose makes the poison. Read the label, not the marketing. If this was useful, subscribe. In every video we examine one ingredient. No hype, just the evidence. What ingredient would you like us to examine next? Drop it in the comments below. Next up, we examine one of the most controversial food additives in processed meat, sodium nitrate. See you then.